Hey guys, I wanted to come on here to have a little chat about our toilet. So we have the OGO Compost Toilet, and it is honestly the best thing we have ever done. So to begin with, the reason why we ended up with a brand new van in the first place was because I so badly wanted a compost toilet. That was the start of the new van process. So the reason why I wanted a compost toilet is I empty the toilet, and I could not have emptied another bloody cassette toilet if my life depended on it. And we like to do a lot of off-grid camping, and when you are searching all the time for dump points, it is an absolute nightmare. The other thing is, when you are off-grid, it's generally the first thing to fill, and then you're stuck trying to empty it, trying to dig holes. It stinks out the van, and I was just so over it. So I've waited a while to do this video because I really wanted to give it a go whilst we were living back in the van full time. It's a little bit to get used to. It's very different to having a cassette toilet, but even Lennox, who is 4, mastered it within day 1 or 2, and we really haven't had too many issues since, which is really awesome. So the main difference between a cassette toilet and a compost toilet is how you use them. So cassette toilets, chemicals go in, you open the trapdoor, and all of the business goes into the one location. It all gets slushed around. It's absolutely feral, and then you need to find a dump point to go and empty that in. Now, depending on your size of the family, how many times you're using it, if you're completely off grid or able to use amenities somewhere else, will depend on how long that would last. And I kid you not, we could fill a cassette in 2 days if we were not careful. So the way the compost toilets work is they separate your urine with your bowel movements, and what that does is it keeps it really neat and really non-smelly if you get it right. So the urine going into the front bowl or the front bottle is separate from your bowel movements. Now, when you have your bowel movements in with the core peat, which is like a coconut husk, it actually doesn't turn to black matter or black waste. So what it does, it actually starts the process of your bowel movements being composted down to soil. And it's really not that bad, I promise you that. Essentially, the coconut husk fibers draw out the moisture from your bowel movements, and that's what starts the compost or the breaking down process. So if you were to mix your urine with your bowel movements like you do with a cassette, it produces disgusting smells, and there is science behind it, and I'm not going to go into how it all works, but it is absolutely disgusting, and that is why cassette toilets can be so stinky. It's why they're so horrible when you empty them. But when you keep it separate, it actually works an absolute treat. So the benefit of keeping your bowel movements separate in the compost toilet is it doesn't turn to black matter. So what that means is that you can dispose of it a hell of a lot easier. So for your bowel movement section, for the soil, when you are ready to dispose of it, it can literally go in a plastic garbage bag. I at least double bag, if not triple bag, and can go into a bin, which means you can put that into any bin possible. You can sprinkle it over gardens or around trees like compost. Now, be sensible. You are not going to do that in a caravan park, or even if you're off-grid with people around you, but I am happy to walk into the bush and dispose of it like that, because at the end of the day, it is starting to make that process in so that it can turn into soil, and being out in nature will allow that to happen a lot quicker as well. I'm not going to lie, urine is disgusting, and a way to counteract the smell, I guess, of urine in the bottle, because if you think about what 9 litres of urine from multiple different people could be like, we do use a bit of white vinegar in there, and that helps neutralise the uric acid, I believe. I could be wrong, so anyone sciencey up there, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do find putting a good splash of white vinegar really neutralises that urine, and when you empty that, that's not too bad either. So the urine bottle can be emptied. You can go to a dump point if you want to. You can empty it straight into a toilet because there's no toilet paper or anything else in that. It's just like a giant doing a big wee. Or again, you can tip that on trees and plants and everything else. Now, again, please be mindful, if there's campers around you, they're not going to want your 9 litres of urine close to them. So the other benefit that we really love about the compost toilet, especially when we're off grid, is that it doesn't use water at all. You do need to carry a few things with you, and I'll run through what they are, but you're not carrying chemicals as such, and it's not using water. So the few things that you do need to make your OGO Compost Toilet work well is core peat. So Bunnings, this is a 15 litre block. I get 4 uses out of it. If you follow the instructions with what comes with it, you'll get about 3 uses, but I found that was just too much, and it was filling up too much when there was a lot of use left. So I now split that into quarters and use that. So it's about, I think, $6.60, so for 4 uses. I also use vinegar. You do not have to do that, but I find it makes the urine bottle a hell of a lot nicer. And then I actually keep a bit of a mixture of part vinegar and the rest water next to the toilet, just so that I can splash that in where you do your wee section every so often to give it a good clean. I know lots of people will do water and vinegar in a spray bottle, but I feel like a nice big swig is a little bit nicer. So something else that you'll need is a bin. You can put your toilet paper in the bowel movement bucket. However, I feel that it takes up a lot of space and it gets caught on the agitator that's going around. So I just feel, so we can get the best use out of the coconut husk, out of the core peat, I just don't like toilet paper in there. I do notice there's somebody in the family that, I guess if it's not a very nice white, will put it in there and it's fine. But essentially we keep a bucket next to the toilet. A bin, sorry, I got this one off Temu. We only had about 13 centimeters or 14 centimeters down the side, and that just fits down there perfectly. It's a press button lid, and the toilet paper goes in there. What I really liked about the OGO compared to some of the other competitors on the market was it looks amazing. So the number one thing for me was the aesthetic of the product itself. There's one brand in particular that has been around forever and ever and ever. It's tried and tested, it works amazing. I know lots of people with it and they all love it, but for me it was so damn ugly. I just was not going to go there. OGO, as you can see, is really nice and sleek, really compact. It looks really nice. The other thing is, to compared to that main competitor, I guess, is that this actually is powered. I probably have not said that right, but in turn it's got an agitator that you press a button and it turns for 40 seconds by itself, compared to having something that you wind, a swindle, I don't know what you'd call it, but instead of actually having something that you're going to wind yourself, that does it for it. You kind of press it and walk away. I actually like that too, because throughout the day, if I think about it, I can just go press that button and it can have an agitation. There is a 12-volt fan as well that's vented outside, so that's constantly circulating the air and everything through there. And there is a button on the side here of the toilet that lights up red when the urine bottle section is almost full, so that's really handy as well. The OGO urine bottle holds 9 litres, and for a family of 4 we normally get anywhere between 3 to 4 days worth of use on that. Obviously, especially if the kids are doing bush wee-wees throughout the day or there's amenities to be used, that'll extend. The bowel movement bucket, the stool bucket, they say holds about 25 to 30 uses. I find when we've been completely off grid and everything is being done in there, we'll get about 7 to 8 days before it will need changing. At the moment though, we've been between off grid, caravan parks, friends' houses, and I don't think I've changed it maybe for about 3 weeks. I kind of can't remember when I changed it last, but it's been a while. Now, the longer it stays in there, the more time it has to break down, so it's not a bad thing. You want that time for the compost to start to begin. Now, they call it a compost, not a composting toilet, because it's really not in there long enough to compost properly. It's just really starting the process so that you can dispose of it a much easier way. So just to recap, the reason why we chose the OGO over another cassette toilet is it's waterless, it's chemical free, you still need to carry the core peat with you, and I like some white vinegar, but it is so much easier to dispose of your waste. Essentially, everything can go in the bush if you need it to. If you're somewhere where you can't dispose of it like that, you bag it and put it in a garbage bin, because you've kept the urine and the bowel movement separate. That bowel movement isn't black matter and doesn't need to be disposed through a dump point. Dump points are disgusting and you can never find them when you need them. Okay, so you can see the OGO toilet. Looking from the front, it's really nice and compact, nice flat lid. This handle here is what opens the bowel movement hatch, so you can do your business. And you can see there the red light and the push button. So that's the button that you push when you need the agitators to spin around to move your bowel movement, I guess, through the core peat. And as you can see, that's lit up red at the moment, and that's because our urine bottle is almost full, so it's a really nice indication for that. If I'm going to lift up the toilet, you can see there are the two sections. So the front section is where you need to aim your urine in. So even boys, they do suggest you sit down for that unless you've got a really clever way of doing your business. And then the bowel movement is just that little hatch there. I won't shine right down in case you don't want to see what's in there, but you open that, do your business, and close it up again. So really nice and clean, really nice and easy. There's plenty of room for all size bums on there, which is really nice. And you'll see here that there's a couple of latches. You can open that and this whole front section pulls out, so you can access the urine bottle and also the bowel movement bucket, or you can lift it up and access it from the top as well. Okay guys, I am going to show you what's in there, so if you really don't want to see, please skip forward. I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that, but I will show you what it looks like because it really is just dirt. Okay, I'm going to open this, so if you don't want to see, please fast forward. So in the container here, we have the urine bottle. It's got a really nice big handle. It does come with a lid, so you can put the cap on for when you need to empty that. And we have our bowel movement bucket. So it really does break down to dirt. I'm not going to lie, this section can be tricky to get the right consistency, so it works really well, but it doesn't take long to work that out. So we have had a few hiccups with the compost toilet. The main one is getting the consistency right of your core peat so that it does the breaking down process really well. The main issue is setting it up with it too wet. You need that core peat fairly dry because the whole purpose of it is so that it can pull the moisture out of your bowel movements, so it can start breaking it down and turning it into soil. So if that mixture is too wet, then it's not going to do its job. So even if you were to start with a really nice consistency of that core peat, if you have someone in the family with gastro, if you have bowel movements, a lot of fiber in the family, and your bowel movements are really quite wet and moist, sorry, we're really getting to know each other here, it means that your core peat is going to get really wet really quick, and you may have to turn that over a lot more than if it wasn't so moist, your movements. So essentially you might be emptying it before you actually fill up the bucket, and that can be the trickiest thing, is to get that consistency right. That is where I've now worked out that I can, get 4, I can use a quarter of this each turn, because I've just worked out exactly, I guess, what our poos are like, really. Another issue that I've had, and you are going to squirm and squeal, is we've had maggots. We have also been up north of WA and now into NT, so it's hot, it's humid, we're coming into the wet season, so the temperature's not helping, but we have had a few issues where there have been maggots in that core peat in with our bowel movements. Look, the only way they could get in there is if this was actually left open. Realistically, if the lid's up and the poop thing's open. So the kids have certainly left that open at times. Flies have gone in there, laid their eggs. Now, I normally squirm at that. It really wasn't that bad. I tipped it out, I emptied it out and restocked, and it was absolutely fine. I didn't have to worry about the maggots going all through the bin. They never left the bucket, they never got towards the top of the bucket. I don't know if I just caught them early, but yeah, that's not a really nice thing, I guess, that can happen for the compost toilets. And something that we've had going on just recently, which a friend told me what was going on, is I was getting a really acetone kind of smell coming from the core peat. It wasn't stinky, it didn't smell like poo, it literally smelled like nail polish remover, and she said that that's when you're mixing some urine in with your poos. So I did watch Lennox one day on the toilet, and he was there pointing directly into that poo section, into the bowel movement section, and not the urine section. So that was definitely what was going on there. Admittedly though, if you really need to ditch the bowel movement, the core peat, and start again, it's really not hard. That was the other thing that I really liked about the OGO. It doesn't hold as much, but it's really simple to empty. It really is just a bucket that you tip upside down, get rid of, and go again. So the main competitor in the compost toilet market, it's a lot larger. A family can get 4 to 6 weeks out of it, which means you're not emptying it for all of that time, which to me is awesome. But you actually need to unclip the whole toilet and take it out. Now we've met lots of people on the road with that brand of compost toilet, and they say it's really not an issue. But being able to just take out a bucket and do it is super, super simple. And I don't feel it's bad. I've only done it every 7 or 10, 8 days, twice. The rest of the time we've been able to stretch it out, and it's been a lot longer because we've stayed at caravan parks or at a friend's house, or even though we're off grid, we weren't around when we're doing that kind of business.
Empty the urine bottle because I am up to that bit now. I actually find it really easy just to lift the lid rather than pull it out of there. And all I do is I'm going to grab that handle just like that and lift it up. So that is the 9-litre urine bottle. Now there is a cap that you can put on that so you can carry it out, but I'm going to go carry it out. I'm going to take it to the toilets, dispose of it, give it a wash, and then I'll bring it back in. Now remember too, if you're off grid, you can put that under a tree. If there's a lemon tree around, get it under that. But a toilet or a dump point is generally the easiest way to go.
So I've just emptied my urine bottle over at the amenities in the toilet, simply tipped it down, flushed the toilet, Bob's your uncle. So I'm going to pop that back in. So we literally just sit it straight back down, handle down, and then I'm going to close it. Now what I find is if you do not put some vinegar in the urine bottle, it reeks. Like, I cannot tell you how much it stinks. And when you're emptying 9 litres of urine, it is the last thing, that bottle cannot finish soon enough for you to take another breath. So when I first started the research of compost toilets, a lot of people said they use 30 mils like a shot. No, you need more. So I just literally go glug, 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 glug. And I've never measured that, but I know it is a hell of a lot more than 30 mils, but just your cheapest white vinegar and you're good to go. Now, something else that I keep next to the toilet, which I said earlier, is just a bottle of water with some vinegar, the rest water, just to splash that down. If I know that everybody's very dehydrated, I'll actually give that a good chug too, just to get some water in there to mix. And look, it doesn't cost you anything to get rid of your urine. So tip it out, go again. Just don't let it get too static because urine is disgusting. So I am going to empty the bowel movement bucket now. To do that, I find it easier just to lift the lid and pull it all out. This compartment does come forward for it to do it out there. I just find it super easier just to pull it straight out. So we are going to lift the lid like that and literally 2 handles. And that is our bowel movements of about 2.5 to 3 weeks, I think was the last time that I changed it. So let's go outside and I'll show you what we do. Okay, so even though this is super simple, I've come outside just so I don't make a mess inside. Hair's back because let's be real, you don't want poo in your hair. So I just get, and the boys have just come back for fishing, of course. So here they come over now. 2 bags. And I'm going to double bag these. 1. Look, double bag, at least if one blows, hopefully you've got a safety net. 2, and then all I'm going to do is tip that up. Into there, give it a good shake off. I've got everyone watching now. Ado's just got back from fishing. He's been out all day. And that is now in there. So that is just like nursery dirt really. There's not too much different to that. Now there still is some left in there. You don't want to wash this out every time because you want your good bacteria and the enzymes to start the process for the next lot you're going to put in there. There is a fair bit stuck around the agitator section, so I'm just going to find a stick, scrape it off, tip the rest in, and then we're all done. Okay, I've got a little stick. I'm literally just going to poke around the agitator just to loosen up a little bit more. As I said, there's no need to wash this out, you know, get it completely dry. You want that good bacteria that you've been harvesting in there to kick the next lot off. And there. So as you can see, I'm going to leave that much in there. I'm going to get the next lot ready and I'll show you how we do that as well. So I'm going to get the coir peat ready now to add to our toilet to get that going again. So as I said before, a 15 litre block with our OGO, I use that, split that into quarters, and that for us has been the perfect mix. If you go off what they tell you online to use, you would use about 1/3 of this, but we found you were just filling it with so much coir peat. It was full before the coir peat was finished, so it was a bit of a waste. So I find if I weigh it and then split it into quarters. Now I actually have one open that I've used twice, so there's 2 more to go. So I know that that split into 4 is about 260 grams. So I just have a little scale from Kmart. I use this in the kitchen and things. I'm going to put a bowl on top. Let me show you what I'm doing here with everything else on the bench. I'm going to zero that. And I'm going to weigh out 260 grams. Now this can be messy. It's literally dry, look at all my mess over here, literally dry, compressed coir peat, which I think is coconut husk pretty much. And what I find is that these are so dense, when it's in that big brick, you can't cut it like that into 4. It's just so tough, it just does not happen. But I find if you've turned it up this way and use a knife or a screwdriver or something and peel it down, it comes off in sheets. So let me show you so you can see there, that peeling off there. So that is certainly the easiest way to split that up to achieve what we're trying to do. Whereas cutting it crossways just doesn't happen. It's so hard. Okay. And you try not to make a mess, but it turns quite powdery. And okay, what are we there? We are 320 grams, so a bit too much. I won't have enough for the next one. 280. Okay, 267. So this is in sheets. So what I'm going to do to prep this now, when I first started, I would prep my coir peat in a separate bucket, put the water in, fluff it all up and transfer it into the toilet. But now I find that if I just break this up enough in my little container, I can just put it straight into the toilet, put some water, let it sit and fluff it around and agitate it, and it does it itself. So the whole point of adding water to the coir peat is it absorbs it and it really fluffs out. It's nearly like a mulch that you would put on top of your garden. So all I'm doing now, apart from making a mess, is completely just trying to break this up. It's really just to crumble up in your fingers, and because that's going to go a lot nicer into the bucket, so I can then mix it up. Also, it is bloody hot. We are at Dundee Beach, which is like an hour and a bit southwest of Darwin, and it is leading up to wet season. We're the end of September. We have had some rain and a couple of storms this week. I know this is probably nothing like the proper build up like what they're going to start getting next month and the end of next month, but whew, I am not okay. I'm not used to this humidity. And when you're camping on the beach and you cannot swim because the crocs are hectic and the sharks are even hecticer, that sucks too. But hey, it's all part of the country and we're checking it out. So I might actually take this outside and crumble this up straight into the box just so I'm not making so much mess. Okay, so I am literally going to crumble this straight into the toilet. Straight there. Because I had some really big bits and that was going to make a mess in the kitchen. Okay, so I have broken all of that up and we have, let me show you how much we've covered. So you can see that the metal agitators are still sticking out. When you do your corporate, you actually want those covered, but once we add water here and it has time to absorb and fluff up, that's going to increase probably double in size. And that's where I found when I was only using 1/3 of the brick, it was just fluffing way too much, and going to 1/4 helped it be, you know, a bit of a normal size. Got the dry corporate in the bucket. I'm going to pop that back in the toilet. To do that, I'm going to slide it straight in there like that. Make sure it's in. And it is locked and loaded. Okay, so this next bit I'm going to be adding the water into the core peat. When you go online onto the OGO website and some other websites, they'll actually tell you how much water per core peat to use. What I found is when I first did that, the first time it was really wet. Now that meant that I couldn't really use it because it wasn't going to have that mode of action of taking out the moisture from the stool so it can start to break down. So what I found myself doing, I was adding more dry core peat in to combat the wetness to make it drier, and I ended up with an almost full toilet that we hadn't even used yet. So you're gonna hate me for this. The whole point of a video is to help you guys and let you know what we've worked out. But for me, I pour and do it by sight. So I'm not going to tell you how much water I use to my 1/4 of a brick, sorry. I'm going to just start by pouring and then I'll show you what happens. So to begin with, I'm literally just going to drizzle it in over the core peat just so we can get it wet. Okay. And I'm going to press the button. Let me show you how much I've done. So you can see there that there are wet bits and dry bits. I am now going to press the button and let the agitator do its thing. I do find also that once the water has time to sit there and be absorbed by the core peat, it does fluff up itself. But because I've just tipped a heap of water onto the top, I'm going to let the agitation do its thing. You can actually see it. I don't know if you can see it on the video there, but I can actually already see it growing in size. There's less and less of the metal bit showing, and I'm going to let that do its thing. Now, a little bit of dry is fine, and I actually know one traveling family that don't add any water at all because they have lots of fiber in their diet. Their stools are moist enough that they were finding adding too much water just meant they weren't getting the longevity out of the core peat, so they leave it completely dry. What you can see there is that there's a fair bit of moisture that's fluffed up a lot. We can't see any of the metal agitators anymore. There are still some dry bits, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. I'm not going to add any more water at the moment. I think too, because of where we are up in NT and the humidity at the moment, I'm finding it's probably getting a little bit wetter quicker. So I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to add any more water in. And what I'll do is I'll let that sit all afternoon. It might get a couple of uses and I'll come back and assess. Now, if once you've done this section that it's way too wet and you don't think that it's really going to work properly, just add some more dry core peat. Stir it up and see how you go. If once you do that it's absolutely too full, then you'll probably have to get rid of some so you can use it. But look, it's cheap enough. Obviously you don't want to burn through the bricks because you're just spending, wasting your money, but just see how you go. So I'm happy with that. You can see that's probably about half a bucket there of the fresh core peat. So I'm going to close the lid and we're all done. So guys, I hope that's helped. I've done a whole run through. Sorry I didn't have a measurement for that water. What I will do next time though, is I might do it in 50 or 100 ml increments and take that measurement so I can put it in the comments for you. So please, if you're after that, next time I do a toilet change, I will do that for you. But if you've got any questions, please put them below. You can follow us at the Endless Circle AU on Instagram and Facebook, where you can contact us there as well. But yeah, if you've got any questions on the OGO or compost toilets in general, please reach out. It's been an absolute game changer for us. We just did 22 days on the Gib where there were very minimal dump points. We were traveling with a heap of people that were walking into bushes, digging holes, getting ticks. It wasn't very nice at all, and literally it was just emptying a bit of urine under a tree every now and then and emptying the stool bucket up the back of the bush, just so that the worms and the bugs and everything else can do its thing. So it's been an absolute game changer for us. Now, if you're somebody that just goes to caravan parks and not a lot of off-grid camping, do you need a compost toilet? No. You know, cassettes absolutely work well in those situations. I guess though that if you are away often enough, you know, back to back on weekends, and it's not just a once a quarter kind of thing, then yeah, a compost toilet would be good. You know, the stool section can stay in there. It can continue to break down, which is even better than consistently using it and getting rid of it so often. So, you know, that can help as well. So purely depends how you're going to use it, if you like emptying a cassette or not. But we have found it to be an absolute game changer for us, living on the road, a family of 4 who really likes off-grid camping.